I don't know how closely you looked at the ASA Midwest race they had there Tuesday night, the High Little Memorial, but that really looks like to me it's going to be a huge annual deal. Probably, I would call that the biggest late model short track race of the year with the amount of cars they draw. I mean, how long has it been since we've seen them draw over 70 cars to a short track pavement race? And
maybe the snowball be about it, right?
Yeah, and we had some Cup drivers. We had Rusty Wallace there. We had David Strimmy there. We had David Reagan there. We had Eric Almirola there.
And Travis Sauter was the winner.
Yeah, Matt Kenseth and his son were both there. And and Travis Sauter comes away with the win. If you looked at the rundown, I looked at all the practice sheets, qualifying, and the race. And, somewhat surprising to me that the local, normal Wisconsin guys, Illinois and Wisconsin guys that support that series pretty much dominated the race. And they had a lot of big-name racers. They had Jeff Choquette out of Florida was up there, and Eddie Hoffman out of the Chicagoland area. A lot of big-name short-track drivers that really didn't fare so well. And David Strimmy, good close friend of mine, and he and I talk a lot. And I know, he's very good short-track driver when he was racing short-track, but he hasn't done it for a couple of years. I think he went there thinking he was loaded for bear. That was one of his quotes. And new Hamke car and state-of-the-art motor, and I think he went there really probably hoping to win that race, and he struggled. He qualified, I think, 38th or so, and ran back way toward the back of the race. And David's a great guy, and after the race I saw that he had spoken about the experience, and he just said, "Hey, I haven't been racing short-track cars for 2 years." He said, "I got a lot to learn." He says, "If I'm going to do this, I gotta get back after it." And short track pavement cars have become very complex. They're on bump stops and coil bound, and it's gotten to be a lot like Cup. And boy, I know I wouldn't have a clue how to set one of them up nowadays. It's changed so much. So that's why I think some of those guys struggled when they went there, because they're racing against guys that are doing this every week.
To make the top 10 of the Howie Leddow Memorial at Milwaukee Mile, listen to these notables in the top 10. You had Travis Sauter, the winner, Chase Elliott second, Johnny Sauter third, Matt Kenseth finished in sixth, Eric Almirola eighth, and Jeff Choquette 10th. He's one of the top short track racers.
Absolutely, from Florida. I mean, wins a lot of races at New Smyrna and down in those areas. And it was absolutely incredible. I looked at the field and the qualifying, and I was originally slated to drive one of Richie Waters' cars, and that fell through. But I think I'm kind of glad I didn't, because Almirola was in one of Richie's cars, and he did well. But the other two cars, they fairly, they kind of struggled with them. And I know Eddie Hoffman had a new car there, and he struggled. And I know that if those guys struggled, I know I would have as well. So probably a good thing I didn't go try to run that. Just need to stick to my dirt racing. But I'm such a big fan of Howie Leddow. He was just a fantastic guy and very, very good friend of mine, and I admired him. And it's just a neat deal that the ASA Midwest Tour put on that big race to honor Howie and all the fans and drivers that showed up to honor him. I mean, Howie was probably the most legendary short track asphalt crew chief of all time, just a real ambassador for the sport. Worked with a lot of drivers that went on to the big time. Jimmy Johnson, Howie was his crew chief the 2 years he was in ASA. So a lot of guys have moved on that Howie's helped out, and of course Howie's moved on to greener pastures, and we all miss him. But that was a great show.
Now, did you drive a truck for him?
No, I never actually.
No, who was that? Who did you drive a truck for out at Kansas Speedway? Who was that?
That was for Richie Waters.
Richie Waters, that's what it was.
Yeah, I actually drove for Richie a lot. I ran Richie's car in the All-American 400 back in '99 when that was, the premier short track race of the year, and we almost won that one. We finished second in it and dominated the whole race, and right at the end I got hung up behind a lap car, and back then a guy named Freddie Query, who was a pretty tough guy in Southern short track racing, got around me. We finished second, but Richie and I have had some good runs together. I drove a nationwide car for him as well, and he was had Kyle Busch and him and Billy Ballew's trucks for a couple of years, and they won a lot of races. Richie's a very smart guy and owns his own team now, and has Paulie Haraka in the seat, and a diversity driver. in the truck series, and they've run decent. They've struggled a little bit, I think, with Paulie getting used to the series, but they'll eventually get the hang of it. They've got really good equipment, and so Richie's son Spencer is also driving a short track car. But I did do a lot of testing with Howie Leto, and actually had a ride with them when Jimmy Johnson left that team in 1999. I had Jimmy's seat for 2000, and with the Herzogs, which owned the team, and Howie was going to be my crew chief, and he and I were both really excited about it. And at the last minute, my sponsor Meyer, which had been a great sponsor for many years, decided to go with a local Michigan driver, Butch Miller, with a different team. So I was kind of left without sponsorship, and my old buddy Jerry Gunderman picked me up, and I drove for him in 2000. But I had a shot to race with Howie. Did a lot of testing with him. We did a lot of General Motors testing on the LS1 motor for ASA when they came out with that durability testing. I get to work with Howie for several weeks durability testing. Jimmy Johnson and I did most all the durability testing for the LS1, and Howie's he's a class act. He was a great guy.
Well, that ASA series was just a remarkable short track series. When the Robins had it, especially when you had guys like when Mark Martin before he made Cup, and you had the Senecers and the Eddies and all of these guys that raced that series. Butch Miller, could we ever see anything like that again?
I just don't know.
Live on TNN.
Yeah, I don't know that short track pavement racing or any kind of short track racing for that matter, will ever have that kind of a TV package again. You and Kirk, you and Scott know a lot more about that than I do, and know, the ins and outs of why it does or doesn't happen. But it's a shame that something like that can't happen again. But I'm just not sure it ever will. That was a heck of a series.
You know what was so amazing about ASA back in those days is AC Delco and their involvement in the sport, and they underwrote a lot of the production so they could get that exposure on TNN. And when they lost those fundings and they lost that live broadcast that was on TNN, which was just, one of my favorite things to watch every week. Once that happened, that was about the time the Robins lost their wind in their sail, I guess is the best way to put it. And that's when they decided to make this sale. But, man, the good days of the late 80s and early 90s and running all the – I think a lot of people question when they went to the new car, the spec car. But I think that was some of the best racing we ever saw. Yeah,
it was. And, even going to the fuel-injected LS1 engine – that was something that happened while the Robbins family, still owned the series.
Right.
And the Robbins family was always on the cutting edge of short track racing. They basically dictated short track asphalt racing. And when they went to that engine, there were a lot of us skeptical. But after we did the testing, it was amazing how durable that engine was, and really the lap times and qualifying times at most of the speedways we went to. I don't know that we broke any track records, but we were right close, and with an engine that cost, I believe those engines were $14,000, and back when we were running V6s, they were $45,000. So,
and they blew up a lot more too. Those V6s.
Yeah, we turned them 9,500 versus turning the LS1 6,800, and it all came at once. All the changes in the ASA series went to the LS1 engine and went to the BF Goodrich radial tires, and so it was a big change, but there again, ASA being on the cutting edge, and the Robbins family knew when it was time to get out. They saw the demise, and they knew with the loss of television that it was going to probably really hurt the series, and the loss of corporate sponsorship. So they were smart people. They knew when to get out. Steve Dale came in, bought the series, and did the best he could, and a lot of people threw him under the bus. But if it wasn't for him, the ASA wouldn't have run the last 2 years that it did, and he gave it all he did and about ran himself broke. So I give him credit for that, and still put on some good shows. It's unfortunate that they weren't all televised.
The Robbins family just did a superb job operating a series about as well as anyone has run a touring series outside of NASCAR, would you say?
Oh, absolutely. And, in our local, unfortunately, now defunct I-70 Speedway was such a big part of the ASA. That was one of their premier racetracks, and, man, were there some good races there.
Doesn't it make you sick, Rick, especially all the success that you've had out there, your last pavement win coming out there in 2001? Doesn't that make you sick to see I-70 just sitting there rotting away?
Yeah, it really does, Scott. And you hear so much talk of different people buying it and going to rebuild it and fix it up, but even if they did, I'm not sure they could survive as an asphalt track because we just don't have enough.
Think so.
We don't have enough cars to support it now. And racing is cyclical, and we all know that. And right now, dirt is the thing, and I can understand why. I mean, dirt racing is exciting to watch, and it's a little bit cheaper for the drivers, and I'm just not sure that there is a future for I-70. The only thing I could see is if they made a dirt track out of it. And
hey, Rick, let me just say this though. In 1988, when everybody thought that they were crazy to go pavement racing and there wasn't a pavement car in town, it turned out to be one of the greatest periods of asphalt racing in our area ever. Was through the very late 80s, and the 90s were just unbelievable. So, there's not enough cars out there right now, and I don't know if there's enough dollars for people to buy cars. But, we went through that same phase in 88 when they took the dirt off of I-70. They closed Lakeside and Riverside. And Lakeside became a pavement track. I-70 became a pavement track. And next thing you know, everybody had pavement cars.
Yeah, and that's when my pavement career started because I was basically forced to go pavement racing. And like I said, racing being cyclical, dirt racing died at that time. And I know you guys remember it. Dirt racing was dead, and they weren't drawing any crowds. There were no tracks. Everything was asphalt. And I mean the weekly shows at I-70 and Lakeside were phenomenal. A lot of cars, big car counts, great racing, big crowds. To the special events that they had at I-70. And then all of a sudden, pavement racing started going downhill. I think because it got to where the costs were so high to do it, and the purses weren't supporting it. I truly think, and I'm somewhat biased because I was an ASA competitor for many years, but with the demise of ASA came the demise of short track asphalt racing, in my opinion.
There's no doubt about that. I agree with that.
It didn't have a leader. The short track asphalt racing kind of broke up into a lot of different series that people couldn't understand. There were 4 or 5 different types of ASA series that were using the name and the trademark, and
the Varney deal, right?
Yeah, and it was just hard for people to understand, and they didn't have their premier drivers, and it wasn't televised, so I think that really that is what happened. That was the demise, and even the latter part of the ASA in 2003, 2004. The crazy thing was they were still drawing 60 to 70 cars to every race, and those were very expensive races to run.
When you had drivers like Bob Seneca, Mike Eddy, I mean, these guys have been around forever. That stabilized that series for a long time, having those two guys stay there. It'd be hard to do nowadays. If a driver's good enough, he's not going to stay in those kind of series very long.
You're right, Kirk. It's all about nowadays these kids, especially if they've got parents with wherewithal.
Development.
Yeah, they want them in there a series 1 or 2 years, and on they go. You don't have the guys that are the staples in the series like you did back in those days that people could go and watch them wherever the series went, and it was the same guys every week, and they always put on a good show. And that it was, I know even before I started running that series, it was probably, like Scott said, it was my favorite television show to watch. And I wish we had more short track racing on TV. I would definitely be a big fan of watching it.
Hey, one other notable win, we're talking about pavement racing. Kyle Larson wins his first K&N Pro Series race down in Georgia last weekend. This kid's for real, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He's a real deal. I think the first time I saw Kyle Larson was when the Clausens put him in their midget at the Chili Bowl, and he put on a heck of a show. First time ever that he ran the Chili Bowl, and I think that boy will probably make it big time, I would say. I mean,
made his debut yesterday at Michigan in an ARCA car, ran 13th. I think he was a couple laps down.
Yeah, that's cool.
One of the great talents. And I think we're going to look back when his career's all said and done, and obviously we probably won't be alive at that time, but I think he's going to be known as one of the all-time great race car drivers, all genres of motorsports. I think he's just – I've watched him race these wing cars and non-wing cars and midgets, now stock cars and pavement cars. Doesn't matter what he drives, he runs up front.
Yeah, how about before he'd even seen Eldora Speedway, he goes to the Four Crown Nationals last year and wins the 3 feature events in the open wheel class.
Yeah, how in the world
sweeps them all.
Can you do something like that, especially at Eldora? I mean, I don't think there's a more difficult dirt track in the country than that place. But, yeah, you guys are right. He is definitely the real deal. He's the next Kyle Busch, I think, and I think he's got a brilliant career ahead of him.
One thing he's got to do is keep his feet on the ground and his head level. And as long as he can do that, I think it's unlimited.
I think he will. I mean, the times we've interacted with him, he seems to be a pretty well-grounded guy.
Yeah, he does. He's a good young man. And,
money changes a lot of things, though, for some people.
It can, but Scott, real racers are real racers, and it doesn't matter if they're racing for 500 to win or 500,000 to win. They drive the same way.
No, I hear you.
Chris Buescher won the ARCA race at Michigan yesterday over Alex Bowman and Matt Lofton. And today the Nationwide Series cars will be going at it up at Michigan. And you said, Scott, the Cup guys are going to have another test session after the Nationwide race because they changed the tire?
Yes, that's what I've been reading here this morning. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So no impound on the qualifying for this deal. So we'll be interested to see how that
I think they're a little concerned about these tires blowing out. You don't want that to happen at 204 mile an hour. I'm watching on speed right now. They're letting all the crews in. So a lot of hard work getting ready to happen in those Cup pits right now. And as they show a tire, several tires that are showing now on speed as I'm looking at it, a lot of blisters yesterday.
Indiana Midget Week is going on right now. They were at Bloomington Speedway last night, and Levi Jones picking up the win, and they'll wrap things up here. I believe it finishes up tomorrow night at Kokomo Speedway, so I've talked to several people that's gone out there and seen the midgets this week out in Indiana. Of course, the Indiana Open Wheel Sprint Week will be going on in July.
What about the UMP Hr2? Has that started yet?
It has gotten underway.
Yeah, boy, what a tour that is.
Shannon Babb won the night before last. I have been able to nail down the results from last night, but this thing will go on till the middle of July, every night.
That is a rough deal, racing almost every night. Those guys are tough. The UMP modified and late model drivers are tough racers, and boy, they run a lot of races during that tour in a short period of time.
And again, tonight, the Speedway Motors Warrior region will be at L.A. Raceway for another event down there tonight. Last night, the Budweiser shootout at US 36 Raceway. Quite a battle between Jonathan Cornell and Jack Dover. Cornell looked like he was going to speed on to a victory, but Jack Dover made a big move on him last night within the last 5 laps of the end of the race and went on to victory last night up at US 36. So congratulations to Jack Dover, Budweiser shootout winner. And that'll be the scene of another sprint car race coming up on Tuesday night, July 3rd. Scott, you're going to be a big part of that deal. The national tour for the Lucas Oil ASCS will be up there. And I would be shocked if it's not a packed house up there. That's going to be a great show.
God bless you. I hope so, Kirk. It's going to be good, no doubt. It's the first time the national tour's been back to Osborne since 2005. Should be a really, really good show. I can't wait to get up there and check that out. Hey, don't forget, folks, I know we're up against the top of the hour. We're getting ready to wrap up the show, but all week long, if you're sitting at home, you don't have anything to do, we're going to get a lot of live coverage on RacinBoys. Was going to be on tonight again at Devil's Bowl, night number 2 of the Summer Nationals. We'll get that wrapped up, and then we're going to move down the road on Monday. We'll be at Jones Motor Speedway in Chatham, Louisiana. You can hear all these races I'm getting ready to tell you live on RacinBoys. Monday, as I said, in Chatham, Louisiana. Then we'll be at Diamond Park Speedway in Murfreesboro, Arkansas on Tuesday. Then Lawton, Oklahoma, Lawton Speedway on Wednesday. Then we'll have one night off this week. That'll be Thursday, and then we'll be over at the Salina High Banks in Salina, Oklahoma. And then we're going to wrap it all up at Lucas Oil Speedway on Saturday night. So you've got 5 nights of racing 5 nights of racing in 6 days. So a lot of action going on in RacinBoys this week. So if you want to sit at home and listen to some action, we hope that you'll tune in and listen. It should be a lot of fun.
And don't forget,
a lot of work too, by the way.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll try to do what we can to help you out from this end, my friend.
I just need somebody to help me drive.
Don't wear yourself out, Scott.
That Murfreesboro, Arkansas to Lawton, Oklahoma is 391 miles overnight.
Well, I was a little bit concerned when you said it was about 90 to 100 degrees inside that motorhome when you were driving it down the road the other night. So
we need to get you.
We got to get that fixed.
A little more air conditioning in there, don't we?
Kirk's wanting that fixed because he's wanting me to take it to the Northwest to save us money. I told him the other day, I said, Kirk, I think I might have to take my car out the Northwest. I said, this motorhome isn't staying cool enough in here for me. He goes, well, it's it's not hot out there in the Northwest. It should be okay out there, shouldn't it?
I said,
Kirk,
out there.
Yeah, except, Kirk, you forget you got to drive 1,800 miles there and 1,800 miles back. That's the problem.
Yeah, but I figure if you drive north into the Dakotas, it won't be as bad as Texas.
You never
Come
know.
on, just hop in there and help me drive that rig. We'll go, man.
Maybe Kirk and Scott, we could get that motorhome over and just saw a hole in the side over where the saw's on and put your big window unit in there. You look like redneck going down the road with never plugged into the generator.
You can take care of that for him, Rick.
Yeah, he looked like he's on Duck Dynasty.
Well, maybe we can find somebody to put a roof unit in it. But,
I'll work on that for you.
The folks up at Liberty RV have been great, but when I told them I was thinking about putting a roof unit in it, they looked at me like I was crazy. So I don't know if it's going to be difficult or not, but Beverly and Preston up at Liberty RV have done me a great job taking care of it. And it's really all really good. It's just I got to get this air conditioned. I guess those old basement airs are just not as good as the roof units are. And it's just right when it's 100 degrees and you got an old rig like mine, it's got a couple drafty spots in it. It's hard to keep it cool running down the road.
Well, Scott, with your wherewithal, I don't want you to go buy you a new Prevost. That's what you need. You can afford one of those. Just sign your name to making the monthly payment and step up to the plate. And then you look like
that's what I want to do.
Look like a cup driver when you show up. Then
boy.
Look like a broke cup driver is what I'll look like.
That would look sharp though. It looked like he had something.
Scott needs
Kirk, can you half me on those payments? Can RacinBoys afford the payments? I'll go get one today.
I'd have to sell a lot of the farm to do that.
You probably have to finance it for 100 years too.
Yeah, I'm out.
I think all of us are out of the Prevost division. So.
I'll take my paid for old Allegro bus is what I'll keep.
There you go, man. Just keep on pounding down the road in that thing.
Rick, thanks for coming in, man.
Yeah,
it's
we
been
really
a lot of fun.
appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. It's always a pleasure. Every time Kirk or you, Scott, call me and want me to come on the show, it's an honor for me, and I love doing it.
Well, we sure appreciate you having in. We'll get Burr in here. It's just like old times. We've been doing this a long time, and it's always fun and to reminisce about the days gone by. So, and the future and where the sport is going. And we want to thank everybody for tuning into the show. It's been a lot of fun. Dean Willie being on as one of our guests, Brian Kopinski calling in from Milwaukee Mile, Rick in the studio, also Todd Surprise flipping the knobs and the cameras back there in the studio. And don't forget, check out McCarthy Chevrolet at McCarthyChevrolet.com. Great deals on certified used cars, under $8,000 right now. Great deals on Silverados. Get out and check out the new Sonic as well. For Kirk Elliott, I'm Scott Traylor. We'll do it all over again next week right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB in hour number 1 and RacinBoys Radio hour number 2.